Picking your favorite slasher film from the early 80s can be a real pain in the neck, but The Prowler is definitely worthy of your consideration. Welcome to Sick Flicks, where I take a deep dive into the cinematic sewer to help you embrace your inner gore geek. I'm Mike Bracken, aka The Horror Geek, and today we're looking at Joe Zito's underappreciated slasher film, The Prowler. Released in 1981, it's easy to see why this film is largely forgotten by casual genre fans. 81 was a huge year for slasher films, with the release of both Friday the 13th Part 2 and Halloween Part 2, as well as films like The Burning, Happy Birthday to Me, and My Bloody Valentine. With a new stalk and kill flick coming out seemingly every week, Zito's film simply got lost in the ocean of blood. That's unfortunate because The Prowler, which was also titled Rosemary's Killer at one point, is a solid entry in the stalk and kill subgenre. It's got a masked killer, kids in peril, and some fantastic FX work courtesy of Tom Savini. But just how sick is The Prowler? Let's get to the gore and find out. The film opens with this old-timey newsreel footage of the greatest generation coming home after the big win in WW2. Well, this is uplifting. Someone's about to get Dear John'd. Dear Johnny, thanks for sticking it to Hitler and those filthy krauts, but while you're off being selfish having a European vacation and tanning on the beaches at Normandy, I'm here wasting the best years of my life. So I'm letting you know I'm hooking up on Tinder. Maybe we can Netflix and chill when you get back, but probably not. Give my regards to Himmler. Sincerely, Rosemary. Well, now that we got that out of the way, who's ready to celebrate at the graduation dance? Fun fact, the film didn't have the budget to get these period costumes or cars. They had to borrow the cars from a collector and found the outfits in a warehouse. Inside, this party's really popping off. For our next number, we'd like to play a little something special. A ditty called Old Town Road. You kids are gonna love it. Bob Saget and his date have had enough of this party, so they head out, most likely to get brutally murdered, because this is a slasher film after all. They drive over to Lover's Lane for a little makeout sesh. And yeah, these two are totally getting killed because they're not only about to engage in some premarital shenanigans, but they're drinking as well. Why not just do a J2 and hit the slasher film victim trifecta while you're at it? While they're busy necking in the gazebo, someone's coming to pay them a visit. He's got a pitchfork, so he's probably a farmer, right?
Okay, and while the boys go powder their noses...
What the hell? Did he just insinuate all the fellas are off doing coke? Back outside, our farmer's busy forking around. He's making human shish kebabs, and Bob Saget and his lady friend are the meat. Man, it's gonna be hard to get the blood out of that white jacket. Our killer's not a total jerk, though. He does leave this flower. Please accept this rose, and my condolences. And then it's right to the title card. We're jumping ahead to 1980 and prepping for another graduation dance. Does anyone ever actually go to class in this movie? Officer Dreamboat stops by to offer up some decorating advice.
Looks a little crooked to me.
What are you, the exterior design police? Man, strong virile men must have been hard to come by in 1980 because everyone's fawning over this dude and his spaghetti arms. He's flirting with Tina Yothers, aka Pam. Then he says this.
I gotta stop by the office first, though. If I don't, the sheriff will kill me.
Hopefully that's foreshadowing. After that, we stop by the station to deliver the graduation flyers and some exposition.
They haven't had a graduation dance since 1945 because Major Chatham wouldn't allow it. You know, I feel sorry for him. He's all alone in that house, so close to where he found his daughter and that boy.
Man, we're just gonna dump the whole backstory here, I guess. Oh, and there's a madman who might be headed this way. But the sheriff has to get his fishing trip in, so he's leaving Officer Christopher Walken here to deal with it. Because really, what could go wrong? After that, it's time for some comic relief with this yokel.
Anything else for you today?
Yeah, just some deodorant.
No sweat.
That joke's so bad I probably wouldn't even make it. No, who am I kidding? Then we stop just long enough to set up a potential red herring. The movie wants you to think this weird dude might be the killer. But if you've seen a slasher movie before, you know this is a total fake out. After some getting ready for the dance character building, we discover that the ladies aren't the only ones getting ready to party. Our killer is too. Pam heads out for the ball, and waltzes her way right into this jump scare. They're trying to get her to drink, but Pam's the final girl. She can't be drinking, screwing, or smoking weed if she expects to make it to the end of this movie. Sorry, them's the rules, Pam. Back inside, someone's creeping around in POV shot mode. Could this be the killer? It's more believable that you could sneak up on someone in a shower if they don't have clear see-through shower doors, movie. Turns out this is another fake out. It's not the killer skulking about, it's just her horny boyfriend. Well, I guess he got all dressed up for nothing because he's gonna join her in the afterlife. In one of the Prowler's most infamous scenes, this dude runs into the killer and gets a bayonet blade spiked through his head and out the bottom of his mouth. That's pretty cool, but Savini takes it to another level when the victim's eyes pop open, complete with freaky milk-white contacts as the killer pulls the blade up and back out of his skull. With the dude dead, it's time to off the girlfriend, too. She can't really see him through the glass, but is all like, "Hey, is that a pitchfork in your pants, or are you just happy to see me?" Turns out it is a pitchfork, but he seems happy to see her anyway as he impales her on it and then lifts her up the wall like she's a bale of hay. We jump from her screams to the sweet sound of everyone's favorite heavy metal cover band, Tone Deaf Leppard. Proudly rocking your graduation, bar mitzvah, or parole board hearing since 1979. Seriously, did they hire a band or just find a cat in heat and toss it on the stage? Turns out this band's name was Nowhere Fast, which seems fitting because that's where their music career was headed. Officer Christopher Walken, aka Mark, then shows up, and it's nice to see my tax dollars hard at work. Before he can get to Pam, he's got to stop and bust a few moves on the dance floor. "Sorry babe, this is my jam. Someone call 911. I think Mark's having a seizure." Oh wait, he's just dancing. This is why he wasn't allowed to be the cop in the Village People. After that, Tone Deaf Leppard is playing their hit, Path of Least Resistance. I wish they'd taken their own advice, if only because that would have kept them out of the music industry. Mark then comes over to apologize to Pam. "Look babe, I hear the beat and I just can't be contained." Then this mean girl makes him spill his punch on her. "Hey, careful lady, there's a beverage here." Pam's had enough. "I'm going back to the dorm to refeather my hair." When she gets there, she doesn't notice anything amiss. I mean, other than her roomie is apparently taking the longest shower in history. Way to think of the environment, Sherry. With her hair refeathered, she's ready to fly back to the dance, but then she runs into the killer. "Sergeant Slaughter, is that you?" She makes the classic final girl mistake of trying to run into another room instead of outside the building. But it doesn't matter, because all the doors are locked. Things are looking bleak for Pam, but she finally manages to unlock the door and flee into the darkness. Too bad she runs right into this jump scare. Hey look, it's veteran character actor Lawrence Tierney. You may remember him as the warden in my review of The Horror Show. She manages to break free, then runs into another jump scare. This time it's just Mark. He takes off to investigate, but the killer's still skulking about too. After yet another jump scare, Mark heads inside. He does a half-assed investigation, then they head over to Lawrence Tierney's place, probably to discuss the finer points of tipping. The Major appears to have gone out for a stroll, but the killer's lurking here in the house. This guy really gets around. Also, why are they creeping through here in the dark? I'm pretty sure the dude has electricity in his house. Turn on a light, dummy. So, one of the common complaints lobbed at the Prowler is that it's a bit slow in spots, and it's hard to disagree. Scenes like this drag on for what feels like forever, particularly by 2020 standards. Yeah, there's some suspense building happening here, but it's hard to shake the feeling that Zito could have cut chunks out of this sequence and it would have been equally effective. But you also have to remember that The Prowler was made in 1981. It's nearly 40 years old. Movies were just made differently in the days before Michael Bay and the internet gave us the attention spans of gnats. Anyway, back in the movie, everyone still refuses to turn on a light. Pam snoops through this box and finds this photo of Rosemary. You remember Rosemary, right? She's the author of that Dear John letter at the start of the movie. After some more exposition, wherein they just tell us stuff we've already figured out, Pam and Mark take off, which means this is a great time for more Tone Deaf Leppard.
In the spotlight, I hope I can see her bleed. I want to see her bleed.
Who'd they have to blackmail to get this much screen time anyway? Our heroes burst in and make an announcement, but not before Pam's romantic rival heads off for a swim. I'm sure that's gonna end well. Hey, look, could you please stop playing this terrible music for a moment?
Deputy London has just informed me that a prowler has been seen around the campus.
Title mention, everyone drink.
So everybody, just relax and enjoy the dance and the music.
Sorry everyone, we'll have emergency earplugs at the punch table. Holy shit, that's Boz from Riptide. And if you didn't grow up in the 80s, that probably doesn't mean a thing to you. Out at the pool, Lisa here is going for a swim. Fun fact, this was shot in October and that water was reportedly freezing. She's about to get out, but surprise, she gets a combat boot in the face instead. Another fun fact, Savini actually did this with a fake leg and boot attached to his arm. Anyway, she's struggling to get out, but now the killer's inside the pool. He gets her in the rear naked chokehold and then starts sawing her throat with his bayonet. Game over, man. The good news is that now Pam will have less competition for Mark's affections. Always find the silver lining, kids. After that, Boz and his girlfriend head for the basement for a little alone time. Because that seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do while you're on lockdown, right? While they're doing that, the teacher's out here looking for Lisa. This proves the old adage that no good deed ever goes unpunished, as the killer gets her next, driving the business end of the bayonet right into her throat. Back downstairs, making out has commenced, but I don't think these two realize they've got an audience. This can't possibly be the killer, can it? It doesn't matter. We'll never see these two again. Pam and Mark are about to go do some investigating, but they're stopped by that goofy shopkeeper from the first act. I bet you thought he was a one-scene character, didn't you? Well, surprise, he's still in this movie.
What are you doing here, Kingsley?
Oh, you know, just trying to get into some extra scenes for my reel.
We haven't had any trouble out of that college for more than 30 years, and now they have to start that damn thing over again.
So, basically, he's the Prowler's version of Crazy Ralph.
Yeah, well, what are they doing in there, Kingsley?
Necromancy, raising the dead, stealing Judith Meyer's headstone. Oh wait, wrong movie. Mark heads into the cemetery where he's being stalked by the cameraman. No, for real, it's just the cameraman. Dude's getting all up on him. Hey man, you ever hear of personal space? Boundaries? Turns out someone had to dig up a date for the formal. Great, now the cameraman's stalking Pam. Surprise, it's that crazy shopkeeper's even crazier friend. Yeah, he's still in this movie too. He's gone by the time Mark gets there, so they head back to the open grave.
It's been opened.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock Holmes. What gave it away? I'm just gonna ask the obvious question here. Does no one care whose grave this is? Anyone? Bueller? Oh hey, that's Lisa's corpse in there. But if you guess this is Rosemary's desecrated grave, give yourself a screenwriter's credit. Next, we jump to this scene, where we get a brand new character. Sure, movie, we're over an hour into this thing. Seems totally reasonable to start adding to the cast at this point. Turns out this Count Dom DeLuise here is the guy working at the lodge where the sheriff sat. Yeah, remember the sheriff? The guy who went fishing at the start of the movie? He's still in this movie too. I feel like the Prowler gave us a lot of characters and then just abandoned them for a while, only to bring them back way late in the game.
Well, why don't I just run out and get him?
I don't know, guys. I don't think Dom here is going to win Employee of the Month. Mark's like, look, I know you didn't go check. I can still hear your labored mouth breathing. With the sheriff incommunicado, Mark calls the state cops, who are on the way, but before they can get here, it's time for some more exposition.
They caught the man who robbed the store 3 hours ago. He couldn't have killed Lisa.
They head out, and Mark is going to ditch Pam like she's a Mustang on an icy road, but Nancy Drew here is not having it.
Drag me around? What are you talking about?
I'm sorry.
All right, that's fine, Mark. You just go play sheriff, all right?
They head back to Lawrence Tierney's house, presumably to pad the running time. And just like last time, no one's going to turn on the lights, which makes it easier for the killer to stalk Mark. Then all the lights go off. Yeah, probably just forgot to pay the electric bill. Mark's gonna head downstairs to check the fuses, but he walks right into this jump scare. The lights come back on, but now it's just Pam and the killer, and he's locking the doors. So, if you're wondering where the real Rosemary's corpse went since it's not in her coffin, wonder no more. She's like Phoebe Cates' dad in Gremlins, stuck in the chimney. It's like the Nightmare Before Christmas up in here. Then it's time for the final girl showdown as our masked killer chases Pam through the house. They play a little cat and mouse, and she makes the classic final girl mistake of running up the stairs instead of trying to break out on the ground floor. There's a little more hide and seek as the killer now somehow has his pitchfork again. Come on out, Pam, I just want to make a couple of points. She hides under a bed while Sergeant Slaughter basically ransacks the place. I hope all this damage is covered under Lawrence Tierney's homeowner's insurance policy. And because hiding under a bed wasn't cliche enough, the Prowler decides to throw in a rat, too. So, if you're thinking, man, this segment really feels like a Friday the 13th film, you're not alone. Joe Zito so impressed the Friday the 13th people with his work on the Prowler that they actually brought him in to direct Friday the 13th, the final chapter. He brought Savini along with him. Back in the movie, Pam spots her opening and makes a break for it, but our killer is right on her tail. Here's Johnny. She breaks off his pitchfork and now she's armed. It's pitchfork versus bayonet blade. Who will win and what will be left of them? Except we're robbed of this epic showdown when the kooky store assistant shows up with a shotgun and blasts Sergeant Slaughter. What the hell, movie? This guy hasn't had 90 seconds of screen time. What is he doing here in the climax? Pam's like, dude, you stole my kill. Of course, this is a slasher movie, so our killer can't really be dead, can he? Of course he can't. Turns out he's got a gun of his own, and he's creating a little modern art installation with George's guts. Pam's like, fork you, pal, then grabs the gun. But they're struggling. And then we come to the Prowler's other most infamous scene. The killer rips his mask off, revealing himself to be the sheriff in the least surprising reveal ever. And then Pam blows his head off in slow-mo. This was Tom Savini's third exploding head gag during this period of his career. He created the one in Dawn of the Dead in 1979, the absolutely classic one in Maniac in 1980, and then this one in 1981. This is arguably his second best, edged out only by Maniac, and it cemented Savini's reputation as one of the kings of the exploding head gag. Anyway, we jump to the next day. Mark's dealing with the cops and Pam heads inside, where she's gonna find her dead roommate and the girl's boyfriend. Surprise! Also, how does this place still have hot water? The shower's been running all night. Is this thing hooked up to a nuclear reactor's cooling tower or what? I feel like there's a stinger ending coming. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Yeah, there it is. Hey, remember Lawrence Tierney? Yeah, he's apparently not still in this movie. Wonder whatever happened to him. And are all those kids still trapped at the dance with Tone Deaf Leopard? This movie leaves a lot of unanswered questions. While The Prowler certainly got lost in the 80s slasher film shuffle, and does have some minor pacing issues, it's hard to deny that this still features some really solid Tom Savini gore. But will that be enough to get it a coveted 5 barf bag rating? Let's go to the gore card and find out. In terms of gross anatomy, The Prowler mostly satisfies. Savini's work is some of the finest of his early career, but there's not a ton of it. That being said, we're treated to pitchfork shish kebabs, a brutal bayonet through the head, one gruesome throat slashing, a throat stabbing, and that unforgettable exploding head gag. When Savini's work is given center stage, The Prowler shines. I just wish it was in the spotlight more often. Because of that, I can only give The Prowler 3 barf bags out of 5. This isn't a commentary on the quality of Savini's effects work, but rather the quantity. I wanted more gore. Looking for another classic slasher from 1981? Then be sure to check out my review of The Burning. That one's got some great Savini gore too. You'll find a link to it here on the screen. I'll see you over there. Until next time, I'm Mike Bracken, aka The Horror Geek, bringing you all the splatter that matters.